Islam. All stand. Repeat the most American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Drew Ali. Amen. Islam, Lord. First, I give praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, who is almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I give honor to his prophet and founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I give honor to all those who give honor to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because being able to see someone who comes from the same stock as you as a prophet is the first step of freeing yourself from mental slavery. Islam. I give honor to the line genealogy of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's just as though there was a line genealogy through which Jesus came. There is also a line genealogy in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And if you follow that line genealogy, you will produce a Jesus. Islam. So I give honor to Brother Emilio, all the way up to our present Supreme Grand Sheikh, Brother Ibrahim. Islam. I give honor to the forerunner of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, as the ground must be prepared before corn be planted, and the potter must build his furnace before he can make his porcelain. With that in mind, I give honor to Marcus Garvey, who went before the prophet, stirred the people up, and got them ready to meet the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Marcus Garvey said that one thing for sure, there is no prejudice when brain is concerned. If you use your brain, the rest of the world running after you. Islam. I give honor to the members here at Temple 52. I give honor to our Grand Sheikh, Brother K. Carter Bay. I give honor to all things pertaining to Islam. I give honor to all who are in line with the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and seek to manifest their high selves. Because if it wasn't an issue, then we wouldn't have the temple. Islam. So it's very important that we understand the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America and the work that we are called to do. Islam. So what I want to do now is open up our Sunday school and call forth our Grand Sheikh, Brother K. Carter Bay, to conduct us in Sunday school. Islam. Islam. Praise be to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, who is almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. The Son is not Allah, though his most noblest image. Islam. With that being said, I want to also give honors to supreme manifestation of Allah on earth, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, supreme personality, the highest concept of man that man can comprehend in the flesh. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was a true man. He was the first Moorish American to proclaim this nationality in North America. He was the first to actually come out of mental slavery. Islam. He was the first to become dehypnotized, to free himself from the European psychology. So I give high honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali for being the first to do these things, because these accomplishments had to be met with opposition. It's not easy to be the first of your race to dehypnotize yourself and to awaken. And then, in turn, bring that information to your people and uplift them. As Jesus wasn't received in his own land, our very own prophet is still not received in this land. And it's up to the Moorish Americans and sympathizers to make Prophet Noble Drew Ali known, not just in North America, but through the world. And we're going to do that through his teachings, through everything we brought. Today, we're going to take a snapshot and a glimpse of what Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought our people. We're going to take a look at what he refers to as the ancient Canaanites. But we're not going to look at it from the viewpoint of, or from the Holy Bible, the viewpoint from the Holy Bible. Because the Holy Bible has a tendency to only include those lands that pertain
directly to the Israelites. And so as a result, we have a tendency to believe that ancient Canaan is only a land that consists of Palestine and modern day Israel. But first, before we get into that, we must go through our 101, our catechism, if you will. And the catechism is only questions and answers. And this is the first step in Moorish science. We have 101 questions and answers in Moorish science. The prophet gives us a question, and he gives us an answer. And we go over this every single meeting to indoctrinate ourselves. Because indeed, I mean, you know, there is some good in indoctrination. There is bad indoctrination, and there is good indoctrination. So indoctrination is just the process of pounding it in until it becomes a part of every part. Islam? So now we got to pound in the truth and push out the falsehoods. So we're going to start with the questionnaire, 101. Start with the prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Juali. Amen. Who made you?
Allah.
Who is Allah?
Allah is the Father of the universe.
Can we see him?
No.
Where is the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
Who is Noble Juali?
He is Allah's prophet.
What is a prophet?
A prophet is the daughter of Allah manifested in the flesh.
What is the duty of a prophet?
To save nations from the wrath of Allah.
Who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Noble Juali,
What year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
Where?
York, New Jersey.
Where was Noble Juali born?
The state of North Carolina, 1886.
What was his nationality?
Moorish American.
What is your nationality?
Moorish American.
Why are we Moorish Americans?
Because we are descendants of Iraq who was born in America.
For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
For the uplifting of all humanity.
How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans?
By teaching them to be themselves.
What is our religion?
Islam religion.
Is that a new or is that the old time religion?
Old time religion.
What kind of a flag is the Moorish?
It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center.
What do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
How old is our flag?
It is over 10,000 years old.
Which is our holy day?
Friday.
Why?
Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh. It was on Friday we keep our flesh.
Who was Jesus?
He was the prophet of Allah.
Where was he born?
In Bethlehem, Judah, in the house of David.
Who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
Will you give in brief the line of genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary.
Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth?
To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the Palestinian nations of Europe, who were governing portions of Palestine at that time.
How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabite.
What is the modern name for Moabites?
Morocco.
Where is the Moroccan Empire?
Northwestern Mexico.
What is the modern name for a Mexican?
Africa.
What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
Sultan.
Where do we get the name Jesus?
Some East.
What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
What is an angel?
An angel is the daughter of Allah manifested in human flesh.
What are angels used for?
To carry messages to four corners of the world to all nations.
What is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah who sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
What is the everlasting gospel?
He is the saving God who comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by his prophet.
What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee.
At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12,
Where did he teach?
India, Africa, and Europe,
How long did he teach?
18 years.
What did Jesus say that would make you free?
Truth.
What is truth?
Truth is God.
What is ought?
All is Allah.
Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
What other name do we give to truth?
Holy breath.
What have you to say about the holy breath?
All we can say is great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be.
Islam. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
in the Garden of Eden,
Where is the Garden?
in the land of Canaan, the city of Mecca.
What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
What is the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of the AC and the MST of A.
What are the words of AC of the MST of A?
Had a change of the more sons of the American third day.
Who were Adam and Eve?
They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
Where did they go?
They went into Asia.
What is the modern name given to their children?
Asiatics.
Who was guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep the unbelievers away?
Angels.
What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
What is the shade of their skin?
Um,
Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
yes, they all have the same father and mother.
Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, the devil, dragon, and beast.
What is the devil sometimes called?
Lower self.
How many cells are there?
2.
Name them.
Higher self and lower self.
What people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
What people represent the lower self?
Those who were cast out of the holy city, those who accept their teaching.
What is the higher self?
The higher self is the mother of virtues and harmonies of life. Greed, justice, mercy, love, and right.
Can the higher self pass away?
No,
Why?
because it is law and man.
What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms.
What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
When was his time declared out?
When you nailed Jesus on the cross,
What are the last words Jesus uttered?
it is finished.
What did he have reference to?
He had a reference to in the Satan.
Did Jesus say that he would return to conquer him?
Yes.
What is the name of the person to whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad, come.
Was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was bound.
When was the head of Satan taken off?
1453, Byzantine,
By whom?
by Muhammad.
Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and New York.
Negro.
Named given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water.
What is meant by the word black?
Black colored science means that
What does the word colored mean?
color means anything that is paint, stain, varnish, or dye.
What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopian means something about
Can a man be a Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
no,
Why?
because the man is made in the image and after the likeness of God alive.
What title does Satan give himself?
God,
Will you define the word white?
white means purity, purity means God, and God means rule of the land.
To whom do we refer to at times as being the great God?
Lord,
Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
no, the shadow of our Lord self will pass away.
Who made the devil?
Elohim,
Who is Elohim?
Elohim, 7 created spirits that created everything and ever was, is, and evermore to be.
What is Elohim sometimes called?
7 eyes were
How many days are in the circle?
7 days,
How many days are in creation?
7 days,
According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam.
Islam.
We just went through 101 answers and questions to the questionnaire. And just because the answers are given don't mean that we know them. Islam. So what we do, we are taught to confirm ourselves with the questionnaire when we are teaching Sunday school. And to confirm means to strengthen. So we have to strengthen ourselves as we go along with these 101 questions. Islam, is there any question before we get to the topic of the day? Concerning any one of the 101 questions? Okay. If there's no questions? Islam? Oh, okay. Islam. So since there's no question, we will move right along. I will call your attention to, we're going to pick up where we left off last week. And we're gonna recap for those who wasn't here for Sunday school last week, and for those who are watching on the internet live, who we know was not here last week for the lesson. So some of it in the beginning is gonna be a recap of what we went on in Islam, and then we're gonna pick up and go from there. Now, what I'm going to read from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science of America, page 64 in this book. In the small book, I'm not sure what page it's on, but it's chapter 45, the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. And I will read this. Sister Secretary, can you read that for us, please? Read the whole chapter from 1 through 7.
The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn love instead of hate, and to know of his higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hamites, and of a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese, and Chinese, the Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan, the Asiatic nations and countries in North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans in North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador and Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad I, the founder and uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God Allah.
Islam. Thank you, sir. Praise Allah. Okay, before we get started, I'm going to let the people who are viewing on the internet live, you can text your questions to the temple. The number is 240-475-3031. That's 240-475-3031. So you can participate in the question and answers if you have any questions. You can text them and they come directly here on the podium, or you can email at kcarterbay7@yahoo.com, kcarterbay7@yahoo.com. Islam? All right. I want to key in on, you know I want to focus on. I'm going to focus in on 4. It says the Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. Right? Now, the Hindus, the prophet says, are the ancient Canaanites, right? Hittites and Moabites from the land of Canaan. So the Hindus are Moabites. Islam? Also, they're Canaanites, right? From the ancient land of Canaan. So that's the key. Now let's get something straight. The prophet, when we went over this last week, the prophet called them Hindus because that's what they were currently known as. But we all know that this is not the true name of the people of India, or India itself. It came from a word called Shindu, right? Which basically was the Indus River. Islam? The Persians could not pronounce the S, and so they pronounced it with an H, and so it became known as Hindu. And the Hindus, and the reason why they referred to them as Hindus was because of the Indus River, and really the Indus Valley as a whole. Now, the Indus Valley today is in present-day Pakistan, right? And this is very important that we grasp this concept. Pakistan was a part of India to about the 17th century, or 18th century, actually. It was a part of India, but it succeeded from India, right? Also, north of Pakistan is Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a part of India, right? But in Pakistan, there is the Indus River, a river that really flows, right, from west to east, right, into the Indian Ocean. along this river was civilizations that was all along this river called the Indus Valley, right? Now, there were two cities that were in the Indus Valley. Barata and Mohenjo-daro. All right? These two cities were found in the 18th century. Right? They found these cities in modern-day Pakistan in the 18th century. So Harrapa and Mohenjodora. Islam? They found these two cities along the Indus Valley, and it wasn't until back in the 18th century, and it wasn't until the 1920s that they actually started excavating these two cities, right? And then recently, really in the 90s, that they actually started finding things because they slept on this. They disregarded this even after they found it in the 18th century. They found this ancient civilization, these cities, right, which is over 100,000 square miles, which is bigger than New York City, right? 100,000 square miles, which is roughly half the size of Texas and about the size of California, right? This is what they found. But they didn't excavate it right away because of the paradigm that's prevalent out there, that Mesopotamia and Egypt, right, is the source of where all civilizations come from. So they didn't want to, I guess, have a paradigm shift. So they didn't feel the need to investigate these cities when they found it, back in the 1920s. But there's a lot of findings, there's a lot of artifacts, there's a lot of things that they're uncovering in these two cities that are changing history as we know. Every day, history is being changed, and none of us know about it. In particular the Mauryas. Because we're so busy looking towards the Nile Valley, which is Egypt, right, that no one pays attention to the Indus Valley. Right? Now, I'm going to call your attention. Remember, the Hindus are the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. Islam? So now let's go to chapter 47, found on page 66, Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. I'm going to read, sister, can you read, I just love to have a sister voice. Can you read verse 1 until I tell you to stop?
The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of the Mexican, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush was northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, they were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking homes. Their dominion and habitation extended from the northeast and southwest Africa, across the Great Atlantis, also the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico, and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, Lord. Thank you. It says in verse 1, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. So the prophet said that at one particular time, Africa was inhabited. Islam. Then Ham and Cush came from the land of Canaan, right, and occupied Africa and what we call Egypt today. So that would stand to, that would beg to, I guess, my attention to this concept, or direct my attention to the concept that India, which is the ancient Canaanites, have to be older than what? Egypt. Because they came from the land of Canaan, right? And the prophet said the Hindus are the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites. So he's telling us here that the civilization that they found in the Indus Valley, which he already told us, which they just now find out, is older than the civilization in the Nile Valley. Your prophet is a prophet. He already told us that. He told us that the Hindus came from Canaan, right, into Egypt, right, and then he divided Africa between father and son, and then he didn't just stop there. Then he said they took this information to North, South, Central America. So the Indus Valley civilization and tradition was carried into Africa, and then from Africa it was carried over to North, South, Central America. Now we're going to get into what is this tradition that was actually carried across the globe that came from the ancient land of Canaan, right? But some people mistakenly call India. We know that India is not the name of that subcontinent. The real name of India is Barata. Islam? India's true name is Barata. Right? There was a king, King Barata, who had an empire. And this was thousands of years. In fact, there's speculation that this was at least over 1.5 million years ago. Now, we're going to get into how that is possible, right? Because in order to understand this, a paradigm shift needs to be done in order to understand how our ancestors go back that far back, and why the Europeans don't want you to doubt your ancestors' timeline, right? But King Barata owned, and I don't have I'm trying to get a map. I don't have a map here. But if you can imagine in your mind, the subcontinent of India that we know today, right? The Barata Empire occupied that up into modern day Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, which is Persia, Iraq, going all the way up to the Balkan states, which borders the Caucasus Mountains, Turkey. Then it goes further. Then it goes towards the west to all of Siberia, right? Siberia is pretty much all of what we call today Russia, right? The Barata Empire occupied all of that, even down to Mongolia, today Mongolia, and all of what we call Tibet, the part of China that we call Tibet, right, was pretty much half of Western China. So if you was able to follow that with me, that was the size of the Barata Empire, right, that was led by King Barata. Right? So you can understand why the sons of Barata want their land to be named Barata. Not India, how they want India to be named this. Right? After the forefather who conquered most of Asia at the time. His empire at its height was about twice the size of Rome. So the true name of India is called Barata. Now we have a hint of that in our Holy Quran with Barata Arabo. His name was Barata because he's saying that he is of the lineage of the Baratas. That's why his name is Barata. Right? There is an epic, which is the largest epic in the world, called the Mahabharata. Everybody's heard of that. Maha means great. Excuse my writing. and Barata means Indian. So this epic Mahabharata, right, was pretty much the tales and the stories of King Barata and his descendants, right? And it was based around a civil war that really took place. Today, the Europeans will try to tell you that these are fables, these are myths. But this is actually real history that took place thousands of years ago, right? The Mahabharata was written at least somewhere around 2500 BC. 2500 BC, which will make it 4,500 years old. 2500 BC at least, right? And the tales go all the way back to King Barata. In fact, the first chapter talks about King Barata. All the way down to the Mahabharata War, which is demonstrated in the Mahabharata, and inside the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita. Everybody heard the Bhagavad Gita, right? So, the Bhagavad Gita is the 18th chapter of the Mahabharata. You know, and right when the war is about to start, you got these two warring fractions, the Kurus and the Pandus, who really are their family. It's a civil war going on, right? Then you have Arjuna and Krishna, right? And right before this war happens, Arjuna and Krishna exchange or get into a divine dialogue where Krishna gives Arjuna the secrets of the universe right there on the battlefield, right? That's right there in the 18th chapter of the Mahabharata. But that's another, and we're going to get into that as the series goes on. Islam? Because this is where we get modern day yoga from. Okay. Now we're going to go to chapter 5. We're going to start the lesson in chapter 5. Any questions?
I have a comment. It's just glad to, I'm glad to be blessed with the prophet's instructions and to have someone of your stature and your intellect, inform me and enlighten me. Because I've been suppressed and I've been kind of dumbed down, regarding what I believe the Indians to be. So it's good to get to the origins of who they are and who their forefathers and mothers were.
That's right.
And I'm not surprised.
So it also stands to reason why they say that Columbus, when he came to the Americas, was looking for India.
Well, yes. Because they was familiar. The Greeks, there's a great book called India in Greece. You can get that book called India in Greece. And in that book, it's talked about how the Greeks were colonized or even conquered by the Indians, the ancient Indians. For one, because Sanskrit Islam, you gotta read that. Sanskrit, this actually means perfected language. And we talked about that yesterday, Friday. Sanskrit means perfected language, right? Sanskrit is the oldest language in existence. All languages of the world came from Sanskrit. English, Arabic, Spanish, which is considered all the Romantic languages. The Romantic languages are all languages that come from Latin, which are Spanish, Italian, any language that derives from Latin is considered a romantic or romance language. Islam. Then you have German, English, All of these languages derive from Sanskrit, even Hebrew. Hebrew is a corrupted form of Sanskrit. Now, that would shock a lot of people because they put a lot of emphasis on Hebrew, you know, and the tradition of Hebrewism, you know. But there's an older tradition. Why? First of all, we all know by archaeologists, and we also know by evidence from different types of findings. Oh, let's go with this: the Vedas. The Vedas themselves were written in Sanskrit. The Vedas is the oldest literature on the face of the earth. The Vedas are written in Sanskrit. So the scientists, archaeologists, everybody knows that the Vedas were written in Sanskrit. So there's no doubt that the Vedas are the oldest literature in existence, right? Before the Bible, before any Hebrew literature, you had the Vedas. So this is a direct monument. This is a testimony to how old Sanskrit is, because the oldest literature is written in Sanskrit. Period. Right? And now they're dating the Vedas to be at least, to go back to at least 7,500 BC. 7,500 BC. Now, the more popular dating of the Vedas was done by a European Christian, and they dated about 1500 BC. And the only reason why the Europeans dated the Vedas to 1500 BC because they believed that the world was only 6,000 years old. According to the biblical stories, they believed that the world was only 6,000 years old. It's long.
Yeah, and all of this and understanding this, and we say that we're descendants of the ancient Canaanites, right? And we just got finished reading over in Christian's son in Harvard, Northwest South. So, with the question, where did name some of the Abraham came? So, can we say the same thing? Name some of the great fathers to which the Moors came, because we're saying Canaanites, so that means that was us, and not what history today tells us. So our forefathers are from the same lineage that what we're going through now, India, but it wasn't India, it was Barata. So we are the descendants of. I'm just trying to understand that this is my lineage that we're talking about.
This is your lineage that you're talking about. The prophet said ancient Canaanites, he said we are the Canaanites.
Exactly.
Hittite, and then if you're still not sure, he said Moabites. So Hindus are Moabites, right? There is an empire that was in India, in ancient Barata, Maurya, Mauryan Empire, which a lot of people don't know that. There was a Mauryan Empire in ancient India that was founded by Chandra, right, Gupta, right, and his family name was Maurya, right? Chandra in Sanskrit basically means moon, right? It's not one.
So Canaanites and Moabites are interchangeable.
Canaanite and Moabites are interchangeable. In fact, he spoke about Abraham. Abraham, see, there's a misconception that Abraham was from Ur, right? Because it states in the Bible that Abraham was from Ur. But really, it didn't say he was born in Ur. It said that he came from Ur and then he moved into Egypt. It never said that he was born in Ur. Because his father was from another land. His father wasn't from Ur, right? But it was telling where he was coming from. But even at that time, you go back to the ancient Baratas, and even go back to the Mauryan Empire. The ancient Ur was actually a colony or occupied by ancient India at that time. So his religion was the Vedic tradition, right? His religion was the Vedic. That's why his name is so similar to Brahma, right? Abram, or Abraham. 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 You know, he followed the ancient Vedic tradition. Now, we're talking about the Vedic tradition in ancient Canaan, right? We're not talking about Hinduism. Hinduism is a corruption, right? We're talking about the Vedic tradition that the Moors, right? Which Veda means knowledge, that the Moors passed down from mouth to ear. The Vedas wasn't written down to around 7,500 or more BC. That's when it was first written down, 7,500 BC, right? Which would make it almost about 10,000 years old. Written. Islam. So our ancient fathers passed it from mouth to ear, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, for years until we came into a cycle age. We're going to get into a different cycle age than our ancestors charted. And when we got to this particular age, we started to decline and descend. And so it was required to start writing it down so we wouldn't forget it. Our memories were a lot sharper back in those days. See, the problem is, let's talk about how, Sister Secretary, can you hold my place right here? We was talking about the Maurya Empire, the Vedas.
You said that Sanskrit was translated into Hebrew.
Sanskrit is a corrupted form of Hebrew. I mean, Hebrew is a corrupted form of Sanskrit.
Okay, well, what about, now I understand it, I understand it correct. What about, now I've read that not only Hebrew, but Aramaic too. So was it Aramaic? Was it also in there?
Yes. All languages that we speak today are no more than corrupted forms of Sanskrit. In fact, test it out for yourself. Look at the common words that are used today, and then look at that equivalent Sanskrit word, and you will see.
It's etymology, right?
Etymology, right. Look at the certain words in Hebrew, right, and compare them with their Sanskrit equivalent, and you will actually see, you know, where it came from. Even the word Allah is not an Arabic word. The word Allah is a Sanskrit word. We talked about it a couple of Sunday schools ago. Even Kaaba, the Kaaba, is not an Arabic word. It's a Sanskrit word. You know, because we know that the word Allah existed, again, before Muhammad united Islam. You know, it was already in existence. Islam.
In the word Assam, is that a Sanskrit word?
Islam. Yeah. That's what the root word of the word asana. Because in Sanskrit, you have the word asana, which are different positions in what we call yoga. Islam? All right. The Europeans consider time to be linear, right? We consider time to be a cycle. There's a major difference between these two viewpoints in time. The reason being is because they think time is progressive. So the further you go along, the more advanced you become. The further you go back, the more primitive it is. They think time is progressive and it's linear. Our ancient fathers knew the time was cyclic, right? And the further you went back in time, the more advanced you became. They understood that the ancients were far more advanced than our contemporary brothers and sisters today. Allah bind our hearts and mind back to our ancient fathers' divine creating principles. This we ask in our holy name in the seven Elohims. Amen. If you take a look at the Vedas, which the Holy Quran of the Moorish science to America is a pure form of the Vedas. The Vedas actually talks about the different levels of consciousness. The Vedas are so sophisticated, right, that other text was created in order for people to understand. Because it was created during a time where we were more advanced than what we are today. And so, as a result, you have people today who can't quite understand that because they think time is linear. Right? Because they dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and then they see at the top of the soil, they see primitive, what they consider primitive man when they dig in the soil. They find tools and things like that because they don't quite understand the 4 yugas.
Mm.
Y-U-G-A, Yuga. The 4 yugas, which means basically the 4 ages. They don't understand this, so they believe that the further you go back, right, the more primitive it is. And that's only because when they dig in the soil, the topsoil, the soil that's at the, this closest, to the surface, they find artifacts and things like that that are sort of primitive. So they say that man is primitive. But if they dig, the further they dig down in the soil, the more advanced, the civilization will become, right? The more they dig, the more they're going to find advanced civilization. In fact, that's why the most advanced civilizations are found right now underwater, right? They're going to find way more about our history underwater. Islam, brother, AGS.
Islam. One question I wanted to ask: do you think that part of the reason for that is because of their own history being so primitive from the beginning as opposed to now?
Islam. That's exactly what it is. For one, because they have to reteach everything they taught, right? That if the further you go back, the more advanced civilization become. And I'm new, right? That would mean that the people that we demonize, that are older than what we are, may have a more advanced civilization, or had more advanced civilization than what we have today. They can't understand the cycles of time, right? And then you have certain, and what we'll probably do, we'll get into this the next Sunday school. We'll talk about specifically the different cycles. But let's just say this: from one cycle to the next, like this equivalent to the golden age, right? This golden age that takes place. This is when man, not only is he in tune with the secrets of the universe and the great God of the universe, right? He also lives a lot longer. See, it's kind of hard to grasp things in the golden age when you're living in what they would consider the iron age. Right? It's very hard to understand it. You can't imagine men living 1,000 years. Why? Because the Iron Age is the age of ignorance. It's very hard for anybody to understand, the mass of people to understand spiritual things in the lowest age. So when they read the sacred books and they say that man lived 1,000 years or whatever, they can't quite understand. It's like, oh, that's a metaphor. That's not real. Right? There's no way man can live for that long. Why not? Who says man cannot live for that long? There's a lot of things that we do today that if you look back 1,500 to 2,000 years ago, people didn't believe. They wouldn't believe that we'd be able to have a meeting with people around the world via internet. If you told them this 2,000 years ago, what were they going to say? Right. They couldn't quite, they was in a period of time where they couldn't understand such things as this electrifying age, which is right now we're in the Wapama age. D-W-A-R-P-A-R-A. The Wapama, which basically means the mental age or electric age. The prophets say this is a what? Electrifying age. So this is going to be the age where you're going to have a bunch of scientific discoveries dealing with electronics, electricity. Soon the secrets of magnetism will be found out. Things like that. And we entered this age we were in what our age is called copper. The age of copper. Right? Which when you compare it with the Greeks' time, they break down the 4 ages into 4 elements, not 4 elements, metals: gold, silver, bronze, and iron ages. The Bible refers to the 4 ages in the book of Daniel, when it speaks about the man and when Daniel had a dream. Right? In the book of Daniel had a dream. And the dream he had was this man who was broken up into 4 elements. The head was gold, right? Arms and things were silver. That was equivalent to Manu. This cycle is Manu. Islam is Manu. I don't want to jump too fast, but Manu is the progenitor of humanity. Progenitor of humanity. The father of all of mankind. He is the proverbial Adam. Manu. This is where the Manu Samhiti come from, or the laws of Manu come from. Right? The first man that exists, and you have these cycles, these yugas, smaller yugas, right? Then you have these huge yugas that last for 4,320,000 years. 4,320,000 years. That's a Maha, or great yuga, or great age. Then you have these smaller ages. There's only 2,400 years, right? In the 2,400 years, you have a day and a night. So you have 12,000 day and 12,000 night. 2,400. Islam, which is equivalent to the zodiac. Does that make sense? No, I'm moving probably too fast. Does that make sense?
Islam.
Is it registered for right now? All right. If it's not, let me know. All right, let's go back to time being limited. They believe that the further you go back, you're gonna find, primitive man. So because they find these bones in places like Russia, where it's cold, right? And when like the freezer, whenever you put food in the freezer, the food is what? Preserved in the freezer. So this is the reason why they find things preserved, because in the ice, they call it the ice age, the ice age was conducive to preserve certain, specimens, skulls and things like that. So that's equivalent to when you find some bones in DC, right? And from these bones you find in DC, you say the whole world is primitive because I found primitive bones in Washington, DC. So the whole world is primitive. Does that make any sense? Now, do they have any archaeological digs in your neighborhood? Any in your neighborhood? They have none in my neighborhood. I've never seen an archaeological dig, right? So I know they're not digging in my neck of the woods. So how do they assume, because they dig someplace else on earth, that whatever they found in that part of the earth, that means all of the earth was like this? I'm only bringing this up because all of these are just theories. Right? They're all theories. They don't know. But people will argue that these are real. That there was a caveman that existed. Islam.
And believing that going backwards is primitive, right? Mm-hmm. Is that why the books today are from, Homo erectus, Sapien is Latinus. But I think it's Homo erectus. It's like the books that they're still teaching evolution, right, in school. So it's Homo erectus, that man was bent over in that age and came forward. So by coming forward, then they're trying to skip that. Their God had to make an ape or a monkey or whatever, right, before he could actually make man. Right, so coming forward, man becomes erect, back erect. So is that, why is it, not why, no why. The question is, by being lean, my numbers are 5,000, is 5,000 the number that they came to? That's about how old they are. 5,000, 6,000. Okay, forward. So to believe that man can be no older than 5,000 years old is coming around.
Sorry about that, Mo. I have some noise over here.
And I think too, honestly, the ones that realize that all humanity comes from us, when they start going back and talking about the apes think that's their premise in trying to say that because they recognize that every time you go back further and further and further, you find Asiatics, that those were the primitive ones, that's before the brain develops. And then, when the brain develops, here we come. Because we realize that we're newer, so we must have been the more evolved being,
Basically,
Right.
Basically saying the missing link. You know what the missing link is? The missing link is, remember, all this is just the Europeans speculating. They don't know, right? The missing link is because they're saying, like what you said about the inside that the further you go back, man gets primitive. So we have found specimens where humans look like to be in the caveman type state, right? So the further we go back, we're going to find his origin, the caveman origin, and it got to be something that's in a more earlier stage than this caveman is, right? So they say, well, if you go any further back than this, it must be the apes, right? It must be the apes because this man is so primitive that if you go further back, the only thing that's more primitive than him would be what? The ape, right? So for hundreds of years, they've been looking for the missing link. And they have not found the missing link yet because they're connecting man to an ape. Man can't be an ape. You will never find the missing link. Do you know what the missing link is? The missing link is the Yugas. If they understand the Yugas and how man consciousness progresses and then falls, progresses and then falls, progresses and then falls, then they will understand that there is no ape. Right? They will understand that the missing link is basically that man, the further they go back, they're going to find a more advanced man. Not a man that actually, declines, but a man that ascends in intelligence. See, they're missing the ancient teachings of the ancient Canaanites. We are missing that. Does that make sense? Okay, so now, our ancient fathers calculate time by cycle ages. Islam? Not just the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? That's only about 25,000 years, right? But also the Yugas was calculating time in millions of years. I told you 1 year of Brahman is 4,320,000 years. 1 year of Brahman, 4,320,000 years. It's 1 year. One day to God. Islam? So now we're looking at now we know how much time we're working with here. How ancient story. Islam? All right, let's go back to, all right. In his name, you have 4 divisions of the Veda. And I'm focused on the Veda because you know why the Vedas is very important to ancient kingdoms, right? Now, in the Veda, you have the Yaja, Sama, Arthur. Make sure I spell these right for you. Sama, Yaja, Arthur, and Reed. Islam. These are the 4 divisions of the Veda. Vyasa, your ancient father, Vyasa, V-Y-A-S-A. Vyasa is the one who actually wrote the Veda in 4 separate portions. He didn't compile the Vedas. Vyasa didn't create the Vedas. He just broke them down into 4 different categories. Right? Vyasa, we said last week, was a rishi. A rishi is a seer. This is how our ancient fathers created scripture, right? Through the process of what we say, hearing the still small voice through meditation, right? He would meditate, right? Well, not just him. The ancient fathers would meditate and they would hear the verses, verse by verse by verse by verse, and they would communicate that to the disciples. From mouth to ear, from mouth to ear, from mouth to ear, from mouth to ear. For thousands of years they would do this. And this tradition is known as the Veda, because Veda means knowledge. So this knowledge was passed on from mouth to ear for thousands of years before it was written down. Right? Also, science, a word science means knowledge. Same thing. Right? Science and Veda mean the same thing. Right? The knowledge we're talking about is the knowledge of man, the knowledge of self. This is what the ancient Canaanites was concerned with. They were concerned with the knowledge of self. So in the 4 different Vedas, the Rig Veda being the oldest, and all the other Vedas is just basically, especially Sama and Yaja, are no more than just repeats of the Rig Veda with a little bit more detail. But the Rig Veda is the oldest book in existence right now.
Is it obtainable?
Oh yeah, you can get it for free. You know, a lot of reading for free. You know, but there's other readings that are not. Reading the Veda is not an easy thing, because it's veiled in a lot of symbolism and a lot of allegory.
So you said the Veda. I don't know where I got this from, but the book Veda knowledge, and it says 1500 BC.
That's from last Sunday school. You said you don't know when you got it. It was from last Sunday school.
Okay. Tell them one of the
Right. Now, 1500 BC, I should say this, is what the Europeans say that the Vedas were compiled as a book. And that was done by Mueller, Max Mueller. Max Mueller was a European who translated about 10 or so Upanishads, right? And so now, because of he the one that said that the Veda was compiled about 1500 BC. And because of what he said, now everybody around the world has taken that and said that the Veda was compiled in 1500 BC. But now, that's been challenged now because of all the evidence they're finding in these archaeological digs I just told you about earlier. Now they're pushing that date back further now, and they found that Max wasn't right. In fact, the first indication that Max shouldn't have been trusted is because, again, Max believed, the reason why he chose 1500 BC, because he believed that the world was only 6,000 years old, according to the Bible. So because he believed the world was only 6,000 years old, he said that the Vedas had to be written around 1500 BC. That's why I wrote this down.
This is a question. Doesn't the Catholic Church have all these books with this stuff in it?
Of course they do.
And it's not allowed to be seen by anyone but those that are allowed, so to speak.
I don't know. I don't know about the Vedas, because the Vedas is out there in public for everybody. Now, as far as do they study the Veda, I'm pretty sure they do. Now, going back hundreds of years, yes, they did. Of course they did. You know, this was the secret knowledge that a lot of people kept back from the outside world that the prophet talked about. Remember, Upanishads and Vedas are not same either. They're not a book. See, we get caught up with they're not a book. It's a tradition, right? And this tradition just happened in modern day. Some of it been put in the book, right? But that's the way we think in modern day. We think in books. So when we think about Veda, we think about where can I get that book? You see what I'm saying? Kabbalah, it's not a book. Everybody knows Kabbalah is not a book. We think Kabbalah, where can I get that book? Kabbalah is a tradition where knowledge is transmitted from guru to disciple. And it was given to him, this ancient power. It's the same power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by his prophet. That's what it is. So Upanishads literally means sitting at the feet of somebody. That's what it means, sitting at the feet of somebody, right? So this information was passed down by sitting at the foot or feet of somebody. Islam, any questions before we move on? Islam? All right. We got the Vedas, the 4 divisions. Now, what is the difference between that and more science, as I stated earlier? Anybody?
What,
Well,
cycle?
it's the same thing. this Vedas and science and the same thing. What I was gonna ask was, I noticed that there's 4 ages, 4 cycles, there's a lot of 4s. And I wonder if even in the 4 divisions of the Vedas had something to do with those ages, or did they connect? Because I know that our ancestors used a lot of holistic thinking, where everything connected some way, shape, or form to explain something. Like we took very complex things and made it simple somehow. So do you know that by chance if those 4 breakdowns of those Vedas had something to do with the cycles?
As far as what I know concretely, no, I can't say why Vyasa broke it down to 4. I can speculate and say, like, we'll come to the same conclusion that you came to, that the reason why he broke it down into 4 is because of the simple fact that 4 being significant. 4, as we have here on our medallion, we have the circle 7, and we have the 4 quadrants. Right. I believe that the 4 quadrants represents all, it represents a lot of things, but I believe directly with this is dealing with time. Temple, the word temple means time. That's what the word temple means. The temple was a place where the priests calculate cycle ages, right? The temple was where predictions were done. Because see, from time, you can do predictions. Speaking of which, here's the ancient father. Barata, the father or president of what we call astrology. He was the first person. He has a book called Barata that you can get for free, right? Pretty much on Spider Online for free, right? He's one of what they call Bhrige. He's one of Brahman's mind-born sons, right? Brahman had 7 sons. Barata was one of those sons that was born from Brahman's mind, basically. And again, there's a lot of symbolism behind it, but there's also actual fact behind it. Barata was the one who actually divided time in the way that we know it today. And this is one of our ancient fathers. He divided time he was the first astrologer. The astrology that we practice today is not astrology. The astrology that most of the Moors practice today is not really the astrology that our ancient fathers practiced, because the astrology we know today is really a Greek system. That's what we follow, the Greek system. We don't follow the ancient Canaanite system, we follow the Greek system of astrology, which is flawed. Because astrology wasn't practiced up until about 150 years ago. Openly. They started back practicing it again. Because it went underground in Europe and then came back out. So the form that we practice today went in and out, in and out, in and out. There's a lot of mistakes and things into it, in the calculations and things like that, in the form of astrology that we practice today. This is not the form that Barata practiced. This is not the form that our ancient ancestors practiced, right? What they call Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is the most accurate form of astrology that you can do. In fact, there's a story of Barata. He had what you call disciples. His book that he has written, huge, massive book, right? The Barata is not all of the book, but the book is supposed to be scattered all throughout the earth. And you have different pundits who actually keep and preserve all his predictions. They say he had made millions of predictions of the future, right? Before he passed, he predicted millions of things. And these disciples guard these predictions even today. You have followers of him who guard these predictions, right? And there's a story where there's a monk, a very well-known monk here in the West, who went to go see one of these disciples, and this was in around the 1920s. So the monk goes in, I'm sorry, I think it was around the 1940s. So the monk goes in, see one of the disciples, right, So when he gets there, the monk says, "What's your name?" He tells him his name. He said, "When were you born?" He tells him when he was born. He goes through the massive books of predictions that came down from birth, and he finds the monk's name. And remember, Bergu is, no one knows the date when he was actually born. So you're talking about not thousands of years, right? Because he's a mind-born son of Brahma, right? So he goes through the book, he finds his name in the book through his date of birth, and he tells him his fortune in the book, right? He tells him the things that have already happened in his life, and then he goes to tell him the things that's going to happen to him in the future, and most of them already came to pass. Then he went back years later to another one of his disciples, not the same one. He went back to another one of his disciples, told him his date of birth and everything. So the disciple, the new one, grabs the book, finds his name, and in the book, it states that he already got a reading from another disciple, and this will be his second. Blown away. That's how accurate he was. Right? And so you have a lot of disciples that his book, Bergu, saying he.
I've heard of this. They said that he wrote these on, when he wrote them, it even told the disciples when he would come, the time, and all these, like it's down to the pinpoint.
See, this is not just a testimony to him. It's a testimony to Vedic astrology, how accurate Vedic astrology is versus Western astrology. It's not that accurate. First of all, because they don't take into account the precession of the equinox when they do the actual predictions, which basically means they keep saying spring starts the same time every year, which is March the 21st. And it does not, because of the precession of the equinox, it moves, right? And it's constantly it's moving now. The last time that spring, well, the last time that the Vedic chart and the Western chart was in unison was 285 BC. That was the last time they was in agreement. 285 BC. That's how far off that they are. And they're trying to predict, and they don't take into account the Yugas or none of that. So it's a testimony to his gift, but it's also a testimony to Vedic astrology, how accurate it was. I mean, I tripped out when I read it and said that they even read that he's gonna come back a second time to get a second reading, that he already got one before. You know what I mean? And so that's fine. In fact, let me see. I just looked at my notes just this whole thing. Maharishi, which means Maharishi. Maha means great, Rishi means seer. Maharishi. And you can get his book, Maharishi Bergu Sambi. We got different forms of it. Slime?
So,
All right. How much time?
145.
All right. Let's get into this then. All right. You see that? I know my handwriting is bad. Bhagavad Gita. How many people know about the Bhagavad Gita? You heard of Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, I heard of it. I don't know too much about it.
All right. The Bhagavad Gita is a portion of the Mahabharata, but some people do not believe that the Bhagavad Gita is a portion of the Mahabharata. They really believe that the Bhagavad Gita is the Upanishad. And one of the things that hints that the Bhagavad Gita is the Upanishad, because at the end of the original translation it says the Bhagavad Gita Upanishad. But because it's not listed, there's a Upanishad that lists all of the common accepted Upanishads. Does that make sense? And they say there's 108 of them. And so because the Bhagavad Gita is not mentioned in 108, the list of accepted Upanishads, you have scholars who believe that the Bhagavad Gita is not an Upanishad at all, right? But even though it states it's a Upanishad in the Bhagavad Gita, right? The Gita was put inside the Mahabharata, and the only thing that it has in common with the Mahabharata is the first chapter. Everything after that has nothing at all to do with the Mahabharata. Islam. This book was written in 2500 BC. Right. So that's about 5,000. It was sold about 500 years before Christ. 2500 BC. In this, and Bhagavad means song. I'm sorry, Bhagavad means Lord, and Gita means song. Right? Or God. Bhagavad, or you can say Bhagavad means God, or Gita means song. So it means literally song of God. Now, we want to talk about this because a lot of the lessons in the Moorish science of the Holy Quran can be found in the Bhagavad Gita. The concepts of the Moorish science of America can be found in the Bhagavad Gita because it's part of the everlasting gospel. It's part of the wisdom of the ancient Canaanites, right? The different levels of conscious states, right? It states that man has 3 different levels of consciousness. We talk about that: wake, sleep, and deep sleep. And then there's one that transcends it all, which is transcendental consciousness, the transcendent of the 3, right? It states that man has a divine self in him called Atman. Islam. Atman, which means self. The self is in, right? We have the same concept in the Moorish science of America, Holy Quran, is called Emmanuel. In chapter 2, it talks about Emmanuel. It says, an age of past, the gate to another age flies open at the age such a time. This is the preparation age of soul, the kingdom of Emmanuel of Allah man. So Emmanuel is the same thing as Atman, which is the self. The beautiful thing about this is the self that's talked about in the Gita is the self that's in every creature. So he said, look in the face of man, you in the image of Allah who speaks within it. Right? So the same self that's in you, the you is the same self that's in me. The same self that's in me is the same self that's in that plant back there. The same self that's in that tree. The same self that's in the wood that made this podium. It's only one self, and that self is God. Right? This is what the Gita talks. This is what Krishna was teaching Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield. You know, the first thing he teaches them, because he was afraid to kill, the first thing he teaches them is that man cannot die. He said, never was a time that I didn't exist. Never was there a time that you exist. He said, never was a time that these men on this battlefield ever, never was a time when they didn't exist. He said, I've always existed. You have always existed. Time never was when man was not. Right? This is the first or second chapter, I believe, of the Gita. Right? Written 4,500 years ago. Right? Man can't die. Then he tells him, I think we went over this a couple of weeks ago, then he also instructs in here how to reach supreme consciousness or samadhi. How to meditate. In this same, I put up there the Indus Valley civilizations, right? The 2 cities. Do you know they found coins in those 2 cities? Well, on the coins was a man meditating in the lotus position. Actually, he wasn't sitting in the lotus position. He was actually sitting in a more advanced position of yoga. And in the position, I can't demonstrate it. I can't do it. But it's like the lotus position where your legs are crossed, but you put your feet underneath of your rectum, right? And you sit there with your feet underneath your rectum, which helps to push the spiritual energy up your spine to your medulla oblongata, which is a very advanced yoga move. Well, they found little coins in these cities, and on the coin, like we have George Washington on our coins. On their coin is the man sitting in that yoga position, in that advanced yoga position. And now the strange thing about that, this was in the Indus Valley, They found some of these same coins in the Middle East, but they didn't know where they came from. Until they went down to India, they saw a bunch, but it was made of that. It was like, this is where they originated. So now they realized that they was trading with the people in the Middle East. That there was a sophisticated trade that was going on. And they was using this as a form of currency. Right? 25 BC. They tell you how to do certain poses to get you in tune with the universal creator. Islam. We got about 10 minutes for any questions and answers. About 10 minutes. No questions? It's fine.
As long as you generate, this is, books and all, can't even understand it.
You can't remember that.
But yeah, that too. But when you pronounce it, right, you go out head on head,
Right.
It's,
I'm gonna start. I say the Vedas are vast. You can read the Vedas, but they like depending on which one you read, they're broken down to four. Some deal with incantations, some deal with spells, formulas. That's the Atharva Veda. The Atharva Veda deals with a lot of chants, incantations, and things like that. The Rig Veda deals more with like meditation. The Sama Veda deals with more chanting. So it's more, melodic, dealing with the melodic vibrations of the Rig Veda. If you're going to read the Veda, probably the Rig Veda would probably be the best one. The Yaja Veda deals with sacrifice, like how to do your altars. And you got to remember, this book was written thousands of years ago, right? How to do altars, how to do your shrine, and things like that. The Yaja Veda deals with that. So the Rig Veda would probably be the best one. It's the oldest. It's the one that all the rest of them refer to. Okay. Then you have what the gurus created to better understand the Rig Veda, which is called the Upanishads. The Upanishads are literally the end of the Vedas. So at the end of all the Vedas, you would have this commentary. And the commentary would directly talk about what the Vedas, the verses talked about. So this commentary became a book called the Upanishads. And the Upanishads is the philosophical, esoteric side of the Vedas. And it breaks it down in a very, very easy way to understand, right? The Upanishads is the hidden book that some of the Muslims say that's referred to in the Holy Quran as more science of the Quran. We talk about that. I'm not the more science of the Quran, but the Holy Quran method. We talk about that. Einstein had two books by his bed. One was the Bible, the other actually was the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Gandhi, for many years, Gandhi grew up in India, for example, and the Bhagavad Gita is like the Bible in India. It's in every Indian home, like the Bible is for most people in the States, right? So he never paid attention to the Gita growing up. Like most people don't pay attention to the Bible as they're growing up because it's forced upon him. Islam. It wasn't until he got older that he picked it up and he started reading. And then once he started reading and realized how powerful it was. And so then he read it every day. He read it every day until he died. And that was where he got his nonviolence concept from. It was from the Veda. The teachings that he was actually teaching came from the Veda. If anybody know anything about Gandhi and anything about Martin Luther King, you would know that Martin Luther King was really a student of Gandhi. He studied, Martin Luther King studies Gandhi's approach to nonviolence, right? And which is ahimsa. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that basically means do harm to none, as we taught also in our Holy Quran. That's where it comes from, ahimsa. Don't harm anybody in word, thought, or deed. A fly, a mouse, a bird, a tree. So Gandhi lived off ahimsa, right? He got that concept from the Gita. There are countless scientists who actually actually, in the past, who actually studied the Gita. It's one of the best kept secrets, right? The Gita is a form of Upanishad. I started off talking about Upanishad. The Gita is a form of Upanishad that you can start reading that and getting a good understanding. And then from there, if you want to branch off to other things, you can branch off to other things. Well, I would start with the Gita first. Islam not only will tell you how to live your life, it also tells you how to die. It also tells you how to leave your body, your flesh. Right? These are the teachers these are the teachers of your ancient Canaanites. This is only the beginning of what the illustrious history of our ancient forefathers. It's only the beginning. You know, they took this information to North, South, Central America, as the prophet said in chapter 47. The Vedic tradition. They didn't bring a book with them, but they conveyed it to people from out the ear, to North, South, and all around the world. Egypt, right? Egypt is sitting there today because of the ancient Canaanites in India. They knew we was coming to embark upon a new cycle of time, a new Yuga, where we was going to go into darkness. Which started around 700 BC. 700 to 500 BC is when Kali Yuga started. There's no coincidence. This is the same time that Buddha came on the scene. Buddha came on the scene in 500 BC, around 500 BC, Islam. This is the time when the Kali Yuga age started, the age of darkness, when we left the Wakawa age and moved into Kali Yuga age. The age of ignorance, where it's very hard for humanity to understand anything. No science, no literature. The Vedas was lost. The priests, the Brahmins became corrupt. Right? At this same time, we started around what? 1500 BC is when the Manu Samhiti came out. We talked about it last week. Still in the Kali Yuga age, around 1500 BC, the Manu Samhiti came out, which professed that the Brahms were the highest on the caste system, that everybody else was below them. This is when we talked about this last week, when you first got a glimpse of European supremacy. 1500 BC, from the Manu Samhiti. Right? But we came out of Kali Yuga in around 1900. The same time frame of Prophet Ali. We moved into the new age around 1900 AD is when we moved into the new age. Kali Yuga only lasts about 2,000 years. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, it's 2,000 years. That's because it's 1,000 years old. But you got the new cycle starts. Kali Yuga ends the cycle. The new cycle starts with another Kali Yuga. So all together, we got 1,000 years from the ending of the cycle. Am I making sense? 1,000 years for the ending of Kali Yuga, and then the new cycle starts with another 1,000 years of Kali Yuga, which together makes 2,000 years, right? And you have 100 years transitional period, 100 years introduction to an age, to the age of Kali, and 100 years leaving, right? So that makes 200 years, right? Then that's the actual ending of Kali Yuga. When we start the new 4 new ages again, you start with Kali Yuga again. So you have 100 years starting, 100 years ending. So altogether it's 2,400 years of Kali Yuga, right? Which is all the Pisces age and a little bit of the Earth age, right? So now, back in 1900 AD, we moved out of the 2 Kali ages period, and then we moved into this new age. And this is why people can understand the lessons that we have right now. Islam. This is why these lessons, for the first time in ages, have these lessons been put in the hands of the Asiatics of North America. Because now you can understand. See, the masses of man, you still had a few people here and there that was in the Kali age that could understand these lessons, but it was very few. They were masses. But now the masses are now starting to wake and understand these lessons now. So now you can understand, what I'm saying? No matter how hard you try to get the common man to understand these lessons in Kali Yuga, he could never understand it. Because he had this veil over him. But now that veil has been lifted, and now we can understand. Islam, praise God. We're gonna stop it there. And pick it up. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna call the actual assistant grand chief to come up. Close out. Islam. Islam.
Islam, boys. Islam. Give honor to our grand chief for conducting Sunday school. What I do now is read from our divine constitution bylaws. Islam.
Islam.
The grand chief and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The assistant grand chief to assist the grand chief in all affairs if he lives according to law, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings ought to be open and closed properly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No members are put in danger, accused, false his brother or sister on any case at all that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being in Moorish America, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the state government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. Thus, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel this state government, and know that they're not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabit the northwest and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings, becoming part and parcel of all of the acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep an eye on all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you're entitled to the name of faith. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother, being justice, becoming part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, to the guidance of his Father, God Allah. Peace. I now have a reading from was dated October 17, 1928, from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is instruction from your Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful to your forefathers' divine and national creed, to be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world. His judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. That is why many hearts have been turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones who do believe. If you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. A warning from the prophet to be read every week. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speech while on their jobs, homes, or on the public street. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cars with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There's been much confusion caused by members trying out their cars. The cars are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings toward the temple of the prophet or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive a reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws as laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your calling, but cease from your turban affairs and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Juali. If the prophet's not right, the temple's not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their temple and their prophet. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Juali. Peace. To be proclaimed in every meeting, Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth, the divine truth. There's a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people outside of the nation that claimed it was only a joke and unreal. Now, since they have found out from the government officials in the nation of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past, and it's through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that pay the divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase your faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine national movement. Excuse me, your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it bad. Never before have I needed finance so bad as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my family nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without either prophet being here. It has been proven by my works that I have performed in the past few years. Islam, Lord. The floor is now open for announcements and collection. Any announcements?
Islam, I do have one. I was looking for the actual text message to come. People request via text message, and there was a question. The Moore said the probably shouldn't address it because the Moore did ask a question. But he sent it via directly on Ustream. So I apologize. I was looking for it to come to the text message. Yeah, the question that he asked was, why do Allah send Jesus to this earth and not Emmanuel? Islam. But let me state the question again. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth and not Emmanuel? Emmanuel and Allah are one and the same. You can say Allah or you can say Emmanuel. Emmanuel is just a more personal name that you can call your God. You know, so you can say, when we say to the crowd, when we speak to the crowd, we say Allah. But when we speak personal to our God, we say Emmanuel. So when you say, when you by yourself and you praying or you speaking to Allah, it's okay to say Emmanuel. It's okay to replace the name Allah with Emmanuel. But because we in the crowd, majority of the crowd, we have become accustomed, we're going to say Allah because we're going to vibrate the name of God at the same time. So if we say the great God, in order to be in unison, everybody going to say Allah. I know you're going to say Allah. I know you're going to say Allah. I know you're going to say Allah. So just to be in unison, we use the word Allah amongst the crowd. But individually, if you want to use the word Emmanuel, you can say Emmanuel. Emmanuel and Allah both mean the same thing. Islam. I hope that answers the question. I'm going to bring the check back. Islam. Peace.
Islam, boys. Give honor to our grand sheikh and I give honor to everyone who was in attendance. Let us now stand for the stand and the close of prayer. Islam. Allah bind our hearts and minds.
Allah bind our hearts and minds
back to our ancient fathers.
Back to our ancient fathers.
Divine creed and principle.
Divine creed and principle.
This we ask.
This we ask.
In thy holy name.
In thy holy name.
In the seven Elohim.
In the seven Elohim.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam.